Well, I remember I was a happy little child. I was always climbing trees and riding horses and just having fun.
Yeah.
Then when the two boys came, then they got maybe be a couple of 2, 3 years old, and we had a lot of fun. I was always a happy little child. I played with a lot of Mexicans, and I liked them okay, but they called me a Mexican. And I said, I'm not a Mexican. And they said, well, what are you? I said, I'm black. I didn't want to be a Mexican. I don't know why. Because I didn't have nothing against them. It's just that I didn't want to be one. And when my foster father died, and we buried him, we was leaving the cemetery, and it was this Mexican man standing up at the gate. And he spoke to me, and I spoke to him, and he said, you know I'm your daddy. I said, no, you're not. I just buried my daddy. And that was the end of that. I never saw him no more. I don't know why he thought he was my daddy. Well, yeah, because we lived on Frank Bell's ranch. They had plenty of money. We didn't sit around like kids do today. We had to chop cotton, pick cotton, pull corn, all that stuff. Not when we were little bitty, but when we got big enough. Yeah. Everybody worked in the field. I loved horses. It was a lot of fun. I'd lead him up to a stump and I'd put a blanket on him and hop up on him. I was pretty tomboyish when I was a little girl growing up. I tapped my dresses, climbing trees. And my mama put me in coveralls, and I cried because I said, that's for boys, that's not for girls. She said, well, stop tearing up your dresses. I didn't think girls were supposed to wear coveralls. It was a small school, but we had to go so many miles to get to school. Yeah, in the country, you know. Sometime we had a mule named Ruby, and we'd hook her up to a little old cart, and then sometimes she wouldn't go. And we'd have a hard time making her go. And she'd finally go, because she was stubborn. And so then, sometime I'd walk to school, across the pastures and stuff. And one time, I was coming home from school, and they had some men working on the railroad track, and I heard all this noise, you know, real loud noise. It was rattlesnakes, and I had walked right through them, and that's why they was rattling. And these men on the railroad track, they heard them, and they went over and looked, and they followed me home. And they told my dad, they said, don't let that child walk through that pasture no more, because she walked through a den of rattlesnakes. But they didn't bother me, they just got mad. And I was scared because I didn't know what it was, because they was making all this noise with their rattle, you know. And I thought, ooh, I better run. Birds was flying. Yeah, so those men followed me home after they went and checked it out. And they told my dad, I said, don't let her walk through that pasture no more, because there's too many rattlesnakes out there. So that's when we got Ruby hooked up to the little old go-kart. And then sometimes she'd go, and sometimes we'd have a hard time getting her to go. But I had a lot of fun as a child. I think I went to about 6th grade. Then I went back to school after my children was grown and started trying to get my GED. And I did. I finished. I went to Reagan. That's where I finished from. I started in Houston. And I was embarrassed because I say, I'll probably be the only grown person in there. But when I got in there, it was all ages of people in there. I thought, oh, you got this many grown folk going back to school? So anyway, I was happy after I had seen that many people going back to school. I guess they couldn't go when was younger. They had to work or do something. Because we couldn't sit around like children do today and play. We had to go to work. It was good for us though. Well, the thing with parents today, they don't teach their children how to work. They don't teach their children how to be mannerable, respect older people or grown-ups. When y'all was coming along, it was different. You had to respect older people, and you didn't disrespect no older person. And so, you just had to bring your children up different. And when y'all was in school, I would go to the school to see how you were doing, and was you doing okay? And the teacher told me, said, I wish every parent was like you, because most parents don't come and check on their children. She said, but you come and check on us. Well, I want to know if they're doing what they're supposed to do, because I'm working and I want them to obey and I want them to learn. And so they said, well, we sure appreciate that. And I had real long hair, and it was curly. My mom would be combing my hair and I'd be hollering. And she said, you shouldn't have so much hair. She was a nice person though. She was so sweet. She wasn't mean or anything, but I loved her so much. Her name was Katie. And so she died when I was about 14. And I remember going sitting up under a tree, because see, they had told me about my mother, and they used to take me to see my grandmother and some of my aunties, and because she lived up in Yoakum. So people back then, they didn't talk too much around children about stuff that happened. They wanted to keep children away from stuff that went on, so we never got exposed to a lot of stuff that people talk about today. And children are different today because they know everything. But back then, we just know about playing and having fun. We were always happy kids, because we had plenty to eat, because my daddy raised everything. We lived on the ranch, so he raised everything. He had plenty of meat, because we had a smokehouse, and had meat hanging up in there. All we'd do, go out there and get some meat. But I was kind of a happy child. For some reason, I don't know why I was happy. But like I said, when my foster mother died, I went out and sit up under this big old tree, because I didn't want my dad to know. And I cried and I asked the Lord, I said, Lord, why do you take everybody from me that I love? And he didn't say nothing, so, I just wanted to know. But my foster mother, she taught me about God, because when I was a little kid, I'd be out in the field, and I'd look up, and I'd say, Mama, what's up there? She said, God. I said, well, who is God? She said, He's our Heavenly Father. I said, He's our Father? She said, oh yeah, He's our Father. And I said, oh, really? I said, can you see Him? She said, no, you can't see Him. He's in heaven. I said, well, what's heaven? She said, oh, according to the Bible, it's beautiful. I said, yes. I said, can we go there? She said, when you die. I said, well, how come you have to die to go? I was very inquisitive about God for some reason when I was a child. I didn't know, I didn't understand. She said, and Jesus, he came and he died for us. I said, really? He died for us? She said, yeah, he died that we could live. And I said, really? She said, yeah, she was a real sweet person. And she'd take time to explain stuff to you the best she could, you know. But when she'd be working, she'd be singing a church song, humming a church song. She was a very sweet person. She loved the Lord. And I really was hurt when she died, because, see, I knew her, but I didn't get to know my real mother. They just told me about her, said she was a nice lady. And so, but I knew my foster mother. And I just cried when she passed away, because I thought, God, why you take everybody from me that I love, you know? But Daddy, he kept on, he didn't get married no more, because he said he didn't want to put nobody over his children, because he said, if some woman mistreat my children, I might have to hurt her. So he just raised us himself.